Dr. Amanda Blake was drinking her morning coffee when the world changed forever. She sat in her lab at the Space Research Center, reading reports about strange radio signals from deep space. The signals had been coming for 3 days now, but nobody could figure out what they meant. Her computer screen started flashing red. Emergency alerts filled the display. Amanda dropped her coffee mug and watched it shatter on the floor. Outside her window, people were pointing at the sky and shouting. A massive silver object hung in the air above the city. It was perfectly round and smooth, about the size of a football stadium. The thing made no sound as it floated there, blocking out the sun. Amanda had studied space her whole life, but she had never seen anything like this. Her phone rang. It was Captain Jake Morrison from the military base across town. His voice was tight with stress. "Dr. Blake, we need you here right now. This thing just appeared out of nowhere. Our computers can't scan it. Our weapons can't lock onto it. We don't know what we're dealing with." Amanda grabbed her keys and ran to her car. The roads were packed with people trying to get home to their families. She had to drive on the sidewalk to reach the military base. Soldiers waved her through the gates without checking her identification. Inside the command center, dozens of people stared at screens filled with data that made no sense. General Lisa Carter stood in the middle of it all, barking orders at her staff. She looked up when Amanda walked in. "Thank God you're here," the general said. "We've got a situation. That's way above our pay grade." Captain Morrison pointed at the main screen. It showed the silver object from every angle. Cameras, radar, and satellites all focused on the strange visitor. Nothing could penetrate its surface or tell them what was inside. "It's been sitting there for 2 hours," Morrison explained. "No movement, no signals, no response to our attempts to communicate. Then 5 minutes ago, this happened." The screen changed to show a recording from earlier. The silver object had suddenly projected a beam of light downward. The light formed into the shape of a tall, thin creature with 4 arms and skin like blue metal. The creature's eyes glowed yellow, and when it spoke, the voice came from every speaker and radio on Earth at the same time. "I am Ambassador Zefkar of the Velthari Empire, speaking for the Galactic Council. The species you call humanity has been observed and judged. Your planet has been selected for resource optimization." Amanda felt her blood turn cold. The alien's voice was calm and polite, like a teacher explaining a simple lesson to children. "You have 60 of your standard days to evacuate this world. Transportation will be provided to designated reservation planets where your species will be relocated. These worlds have been prepared for your basic survival needs. Compliance is not optional." The recording showed people in the streets below, staring up at the hologram in shock and fear. Some fell to their knees. Others ran screaming. Most just stood there, unable to process what they were hearing. "Resistance is illogical," the alien continued. "The Galactic Council represents 12 advanced civilizations spanning this galaxy. Your technology is primitive by our standards. Your weapons cannot harm our vessels. Your fastest ships cannot escape our pursuit. Accept this transition peacefully, and your species will survive on the reservation worlds." The hologram flickered and showed images that made Amanda's stomach turn. Massive alien ships surrounded other planets, their surfaces covered in cities and forests. Laser beams shot down from the ships, turning everything to ash in seconds. Then the same ships landed on the dead worlds and began strip mining them, with machines the size of mountains. "This is the fate of worlds whose inhabitants choose resistance," Zethkar said. "This is the fate of species who believe their primitive weapons can challenge the might of the Council. Learn from their example." The hologram showed more conquered worlds. Some had been turned into giant factories. Others became prison planets, where defeated aliens worked in mines and farms. The message was clear: surrender or die. You have 60 days, the ambassador repeated. Use this time wisely. Prepare your people for relocation. Do not waste lives on pointless defiance. The council's decision is final. The hologram vanished. The silver object remained in the sky, silent and waiting. Amanda looked around the command center. Everyone was quiet, processing what they had just witnessed. Some of the younger soldiers looked ready to panic. Others seemed angry. A few appeared to be calculating odds and finding them hopeless. General Carter broke the silence. Get me President Walsh on the secure line and contact every world leader we can reach. We need an emergency session of the United Nations within 6 hours. What do we tell them? Morrison asked. The truth, Carter replied. That we're facing extinction unless we can figure out a way to fight gods. Amanda studied the data streaming in from their sensors. The alien probe was made of materials that didn't exist in any human database. Its energy readings defied known physics. It had appeared instantly, without any sign of engines or propulsion systems. Everything about it screamed of technology thousands of years ahead of anything humans had built. But Amanda Blake hadn't become Earth's top scientist by giving up when things looked impossible. She pulled up her computer files and started making notes. Somewhere in all this alien technology, there had to be a weakness. There had to be something humans could exploit. General, she said, I need access to every piece of equipment we have. And I need a team of our best engineers and physicists. If these aliens think we're primitive, maybe it's time to show them what primitive species do when they're backed into a corner. Carter smiled grimly. What do you have in mind, Doctor? I don't know yet, Amanda admitted. But I'm betting these council aliens have never dealt with humans before. They might be in for a surprise. Outside, the silver probe continued its silent watch over Earth. 60 days until humanity's deadline. 60 days to find the miracle. The countdown had begun. 3 weeks after the alien warning, the world had changed completely. Some people prayed in churches and mosques and temples, begging their gods to save them. Others rioted in the streets, burning cars and looting stores. Most just went to work. Each day, pretending everything was normal, while their governments decided humanity's fate. Dr. Kevin Scott hadn't slept in 4 days. He stood in a secret laboratory, buried deep under the Nevada desert, staring at pieces of the alien probe. His team had managed to break off tiny fragments using focused nuclear explosions. But even these small chunks seemed impossible to understand. The metal repairs itself, said Maria Lopez, the chief engineer working beside him. She pointed at a sample under the microscope. Watch this. She took a diamond-tipped drill and scraped a line across the alien material. Within seconds, the scratch disappeared as if it had never existed. The metal flowed like liquid for a moment, then became solid again. It's not just self-repairing, Kevin said, wiping exhaustion from his eyes. It's learning. Each time we try to cut it, the metal gets harder to damage. Like it remembers our attacks and develops defenses. Maria nodded grimly. We've tried everything. Acid, heat, cold, radiation, electromagnetic pulses. Nothing works for more than a few seconds. This stuff is beyond anything we've ever seen. But Kevin wasn't ready to give up. He had discovered something the aliens probably didn't expect humans to notice. Hidden in the probe's quantum signature was a communication network that connected it to other alien technology across the galaxy. The signals were encrypted, but they followed patterns that human mathematicians could recognize. We can't break their metal, Kevin said, but maybe we can break their codes. In another part of the facility, Colonel Ryan Mitchell was training. A very different kind of response. His soldiers weren't trying to understand alien technology. They were preparing to destroy it using good old-fashioned human weapons. Listen up, Mitchell told his squad leaders. These aliens think they know everything about primitive warfare. They've conquered hundreds of worlds using the same tactics. Big ships, energy weapons, overwhelming force from a safe distance. He pointed at a tactical display showing the alien probe. But they've never fought humans before. They don't know that we're crazy enough to strap nuclear bombs to fighter jets and ram them into enemy ships. They don't know that our pilots will fly through enemy fire at speeds that should turn them into paste. Commander Nick Peterson raised his hand. He was the best pilot in the human military, famous for stunts that made other aviators nervous just watching them. Sir, our jets can't even reach that probe. It's sitting 20 miles up, higher than anything we've built can fly. Not anymore, Mitchell smiled. Dr. Scott's team figured out how to juice our engines using alien power signatures. Your F-22 can now fly at Mach 8 and pull maneuvers that would normally kill you. The G-forces should liquefy your organs, but somehow the alien energy fields protect you from your own acceleration, Peterson grinned. How much alien energy are we talking about? Enough to make your fighter jet perform like a spacecraft. The eggheads don't understand how it works, but it works. You'll be flying at speeds and altitudes that no human has ever survived. Meanwhile, President Helen Walsh stood before the United Nations, delivering humanity's official response to the Galactic Council. Representatives from every country sat in stunned silence as she spoke. We have studied the alien ultimatum carefully, she said. We have consulted with our scientists, our military leaders, and our citizens. Earth's answer is simple and unanimous. She paused, looking directly into the cameras that were broadcasting her words to every corner of the planet. We refuse. The silence in the assembly hall was deafening. Several diplomats started to object, but Walsh continued. Humanity did not crawl out of caves and build civilization just to surrender it to the first bullies who show up with bigger guns. We did not survive ice ages and plagues and world wars just to become refugees on some alien reservation planet. Dr. Amanda Blake watched from the audience, knowing what came next. She and Kevin had spent the last 3 weeks not just studying alien technology, but hijacking it. They had found a way to tap into the probe's communication network and send their own messages across the galaxy. We know the Galactic Council is listening, Walsh continued. They can hear every word I'm saying through their own probe. So let me be very clear. Earth is not for sale. Earth is not for rent. Earth is our home, and we will defend it. The president nodded to a technician at the back of the room. Giant screens around the assembly hall lit up with footage that made several delegates gasp in shock. The screens showed human military exercises from around the world, tanks rolling across deserts, fighter jets screaming through mountain valleys, submarines launching missiles from beneath the ocean, nuclear weapons tests from decades past, showing mushroom clouds. That could be seen from Space Dot, but the most shocking footage came from recent weeks. It showed the modified fighter jets that Mitchell's team had built, flying at impossible speeds and pulling maneuvers that looked like magic. Human pilots diving straight down from the edge of space, pulling out of their dives at the last second, and rocketing back up into the clouds. The Galactic Council believes we are primitive, Walsh said as the footage continued. They think our weapons are toys. They assume we will surrender rather than fight against impossible odds. The screens now showed historical battles. Humans at Thermopylae holding a mountain pass against overwhelming enemies. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, where outnumbered rebels fought tanks with handmade weapons. The Battle of Britain, where a few 100 pilots saved their entire country from invasion. They don't understand what they're dealing with, the president said. Humans don't surrender. Humans don't back down. When you corner us, we don't run. We fight harder. Dr. Blake smiled as she watched the alien probe's energy readings spike. The Council was receiving Earth's message, and they were not happy about it. Their probe systems were overloading as they tried to process the implications of humanity's defiance. "We have 60 days, Walsh concluded. "We will use every minute to prepare our defenses. And when the Galactic Council comes to take our world by force, they will discover that primitive humans have some very sophisticated ways of saying no." The broadcast ended, but the real message was just beginning. Kevin and Maria's hacked communication system was now flooding the galactic network with human data. Military specifications, weapon capabilities, tactical doctrines, and most importantly, human psychological profiles that would terrify any logical alien mind. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were the species that had turned warfare into an art form. They were about to discover that Earth's inhabitants viewed impossible odds not as reasons to surrender, but as challenges to overcome. Across the cosmos, alien civilizations that had never heard of Earth were suddenly receiving detailed reports about human conflicts. They learned about kamikaze pilots, berserker warriors, and soldiers who charged machine gun nests with bayonets. They discovered that humans were the only known species that would fight to the death, even when victory was impossible. The Galactic Council's probe flickered and went dark for several seconds as its system struggled to process the flood of human data. When it came back online, it immediately began transmitting emergency reports to its masters. For the first time in their long history of conquest, the Council faced a species that promised to make victory more expensive than defeat. The countdown continued, but now both sides were preparing for a war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. 45 days after the warning, the Galactic Council lost patience with humanity's stubborn refusal to surrender. Admiral Klexthyra of the Arcturian Collective received orders to make an example of Earth that would echo across the galaxy. For 1,000 years, his fleet consisted of 12 massive dreadnoughts, each one 3 miles long and armed with weapons that could crack planets in half. The ships moved through space like floating cities, their hulls bristling with energy cannons and missile launchers. Each vessel carried enough firepower to destroy every human military base on Earth in a single bombardment. Admiral Klexthyra stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying holographic displays that showed Earth's pathetic defenses. A few thousand primitive aircraft, some rockets that barely reached their own moon, and nuclear weapons that were laughably weak compared to galactic standards. "This will be over in minutes," he told his officers. "The humans will see our power," and begged for mercy. "Then we can proceed with the planned evacuation without further delays." His fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. Sensors immediately detected the human response force racing toward them, a swarm of tiny fighter jets that looked like insects compared to the massive alien warships. Commander Nick Peterson led the human squadron, flying his modified F-22 at speeds that should have been impossible. Behind him, 49 other pilots pushed their aircraft to the absolute limits of performance. The alien energy fields protecting them from G-forces glowed bright blue around each fighter, making them look like shooting stars as they accelerated toward the enemy fleet. "Remember the plan," Peterson said over the radio. "These aliens fight like generals. They stay far away and use overwhelming firepower. They've never dealt with pilots crazy enough to get up close and personal." Lieutenant Danny Hayes checked his weapon systems one more time. His fighter carried a single nuclear warhead where the fuel tank used to be. The missile was programmed for a suicide run. He would ram it directly into the biggest alien ship he could find. "Danny, you don't have to do this," his wingman captain, Beth Rodriguez, said over the comm. "We can find another way." "Negative," Hayes replied. "Somebody has to show these aliens that humans don't scare easy." "Might as well be me." Admiral Klexthyra watched the approaching human fighters with contempt. His tactical computers calculated that the primitive aircraft would be destroyed long before they could reach effective weapons range. Energy barriers around his ships could stop anything the humans might throw at them. "Open fire," he ordered. "Destroy them all." The alien dreadnoughts unleashed a storm of energy beams that lit up space like a deadly aurora. The weapons were designed to vaporize enemy ships at distances of thousands of miles. But the human fighters didn't behave like enemy ships. Instead of flying in predictable formations, they scattered in every direction at once. Instead of maintaining safe distances, they dove straight into the weapon fire at velocities that made targeting impossible. The alien computers, programmed to fight logical opponents, couldn't predict the chaotic human attack patterns. Peterson's fighter screamed between two energy beams that missed him by inches, then rolled into a spiral dive that brought him under the shields of the nearest dreadnought. His fighter's alien-enhanced engines allowed him to pull maneuvers that would have been suicide in a normal aircraft. "I'm through their outer defenses," he reported. "These ships are huge, but they're not built for close combat. Their weapons can't track fast-moving targets at short range." Danny Hayes saw his chance and took it. His nuclear-armed fighter rocketed straight at the Admiral's flagship, weaving between desperate defensive fire from the alien point defense systems. The ship's shields flared as they tried to stop him, but the barriers were designed to block energy weapons, not a supersonic chunk of metal and explosives. "For Earth," Hayes shouted as his fighter punched through the shields and slammed into the dreadnought's main power generator. That the nuclear explosion lit up the solar system. The flagship's shields collapsed, its engines went dead, and massive sections of its hull began venting atmosphere into space. The ship, designed to destroy planets, had been crippled by a single human pilot with a bomb. Admiral Klex Thyra found himself thrown across his bridge as emergency alarms screamed throughout the ship. Half his control systems were offline, and the other half showed damage reports that seemed impossible. One primitive fighter had done more harm to his flagship than entire enemy fleets had managed in previous battles. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Their weapons are crude. Their technology is inferior." His tactical officer, nursing a broken arm, looked up from his damaged console. "Sir, they're not fighting like any species we've encountered. They're ramming our ships with nuclear weapons. They're flying directly into our defensive fire. These tactics are completely insane." Rodriguez led the second wave of fighters through the breach that Hayes had created. The alien crew was still trying to figure out what had happened when 20 human fighters swarmed into the flagship's hull like angry hornets. Nuclear weapons detonated throughout the massive ship, turning its corridors into rivers of fire. Dr. Maria Lopez watched the battle from Earth's command center, tracking the engagement through quantum communicators that Kevin Scott had built using stolen alien technology. What she saw defied every rule of space warfare. "They're winning," she said in amazement. "Our fighters are actually winning." The alien fleet tried to adapt to human tactics, but their doctrine had been perfected over millions of years against logical opponents. They had no protocols for dealing with enemies who treated death as an acceptable cost of victory. Their weapon systems couldn't track targets that flew straight at them through heavy fire. One by one, the massive dreadnoughts fell to swarms of human fighters. Captain Rodriguez destroyed the second ship by leading her squadron in a coordinated attack on its reactor core. Major Tom Bradley took out the third by ramming his fighter into the ship's bridge at Mach 12, decapitating the alien command structure. Admiral Klex Thyra finally gave the order to retreat when only 3 of his 12 ships remained operational. His fleet, which had conquered dozens of worlds without losing a single vessel, limped away from Earth in complete defeat. But the most terrifying discovery came when his communications officer intercepted human radio chatter during the battle. The recordings would haunt galactic military planners for generations to come. This is Peterson to all fighters. Nice work, people. Command wants to know if anyone needs medical attention. Rodriguez here. My bird took some hits, but I'm fine. Lost 2 wingmen, though. Radley reporting. My fighters totaled, but I'm alive. Had to eject when the alien ship exploded. Hayes. Hayes didn't make it, but he took their biggest ship with him. Copy that? Hayes went out like a warrior. The aliens will remember his name. What chilled the listening aliens was the tone of the human voices. They weren't celebrating a desperate victory or mourning devastating losses. They were discussing the battle like it was routine training exercise. Losing pilots was regrettable but acceptable. Ramming nuclear weapons into enemy ships was just another day at the office. Admiral Kleckstyra's final report to the Galactic Council was brief and terrifying. The humans are not a primitive species. They are a species of warriors who view death in battle as an honor rather than a failure. Recommend immediate classification as extreme threat. Standard conquest protocols are inadequate. But the Council was already planning their response. If a small demonstration had failed, they would send a force large enough to overwhelm even human insanity. A grand fleet was being assembled, 200 warships representing the combined might of 3 galactic empires. On Earth, the celebrating humans were already preparing for the next battle. They had proven that alien technology could be beaten by human courage and creativity. Now they had 45 captured alien weapons, 3 damaged but salvageable dreadnoughts, and most importantly, the knowledge that their enemies could bleed. The first battle was over. The real war was about to begin. The Galactic Council's emergency session lasted for 3 standard days. Representatives from 12 different species argued in the great crystal chamber that had witnessed 1,000 years of peaceful expansion across the galaxy. Today, for the first time, they were discussing a species that had not only refused to surrender, but had destroyed a council fleet. Counselor Vexmoth of the Drakmarian. Hegemony slammed his scaled fist on the speaking podium. His species had evolved from predators, but even they had learned to fight with logic and overwhelming technology rather than suicidal bravery. These humans are a cancer that will spread throughout the galaxy if we don't cut it out immediately. He declared, they have violated every rule of civilized warfare. They attack with nuclear weapons at close range. They sacrifice their own lives to destroy our ships. This behavior is not just primitive, it's insane. Ambassador Thelanara of the peaceful Zephyrian Alliance raised a tentacle in objection. Her people had joined the Council through diplomacy, rather than conquest, and they still believed in negotiated solutions. Perhaps we should attempt communication, she suggested. The humans may be acting from fear and desperation. If we explain the benefits of Council membership more clearly, Explain to them what? Vexmoth interrupted. We already offered them survival on reservation worlds. They chose death instead. These creatures cannot be reasoned with. The debate continued, but Supreme Admiral Vikvalar was already implementing the Council's decision. 200 warships from 3 different empires were gathering at the edge of human space, forming the largest military force in galactic history. Nothing that primitive Earth could field would survive this assault. But on Earth, humanity was not waiting passively for the next attack. In the captured alien ships, teams of engineers and scientists worked around the clock to understand technology that was thousands of years beyond human science. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the command center of a captured dreadnought, watching his technicians try to figure out how the alien faster-than-light drive worked. The ship's original crew had been taken prisoner, and some of them were cooperating in exchange for better treatment. The quantum tunneling matrix requires precise calibration, explained Zarkith, a captured alien engineer. Your species lacks a mathematical understanding to operate our technologies safely. Dr. Kevin Scott looked up from his calculations with a grin that made the alien nervous. Actually, we figured out your math 3 hours ago. The problem isn't understanding how your technology works. The problem is making it work the way we want it to. He pointed at the ship's main display, which showed modifications that horrified the alien engineer. The humans had removed most of the ship's defensive systems and replaced them with nuclear missiles. They had stripped out the crew quarters and filled them with additional weapons. The ship was no longer a balanced warship. It was a flying bomb designed for maximum destruction. This configuration will destroy the ship after a single engagement. Zarkith protested. You cannot survive combat in a vessel modified this way. Who said anything about surviving? Morrison replied. We're not planning to bring this ship home. Meanwhile, Colonel Ryan Mitchell was implementing humanity's most audacious plan yet. Instead of waiting for the alien Grand Fleet to reach Earth, humans would strike first at the heart of galactic civilization itself. In a secret facility built inside a captured alien ship. Major Alex Thompson briefed his assault teams on their mission. The soldiers wore modified alien armor and carried weapons reverse-engineered from captured technology. But their tactics remained purely human. Intelligence reports that the Council worlds have been at peace for so long they've forgotten how to fight, Thompson explained. Their defense forces are designed to maintain order, not repel invasion. They've never faced an enemy willing to attack their home systems. Commander Sarah Lewis studied the tactical plans with professional interest. Her Marines had trained for this mission using captured alien virtual reality systems, learning to fight in low-gravity environments and alien atmospheres. What's our primary objective? She asked. Terror, Mitchell replied bluntly. We're not trying to conquer these worlds. We're trying to prove that nowhere in the galaxy is safe from human retaliation. When the Council's citizens realize that their own homes can be attacked, they'll pressure their leaders to negotiate. The strike force consisted of 3 captured alien ships, fully repaired and crewed by volunteers who knew they probably wouldn't return. Each ship carried 100 human soldiers and enough firepower to level the city. Their targets were military installations, government buildings, and communication centers on 12 different worlds. Dr. Amanda Blake coordinated the mission from Earth's command center, using the quantum communication network they had hijacked from the original alien probe. She could monitor all human forces across the galaxy in real time, but she couldn't help them if things went wrong. Strike teams, this is Earth Control, she broadcast. The Grand Fleet has left their staging area and is heading for our solar system. You have approximately 6 standard days before they arrive. Make them count. The first human raids began simultaneously across the galaxy. On the industrial world of Kefdar, Thompson's Marines emerged from their stolen ship to find a civilization that had never experienced war. The alien factories had no military defenses beyond basic security forces armed with crowd control weapons. Demolition teams, target the quantum communication arrays, Thompson ordered as his soldiers advanced through the startled alien workers. Electronics team, hack their data networks and download everything. We need intelligence on their other military assets. The aliens tried to resist, but their security forces were trained for civil disorder, not military assault. Human soldiers, veterans of wars on Earth, overwhelmed them within minutes, using tactics that seemed brutally efficient to species accustomed to civilized conflict. On the Council, capital world of Velfara, Commander Lewis led her Marines in an assault on the primary government complex. The building's defenses consisted of energy barriers and automated systems designed to stop individual terrorists, not organized military units. Breaching charges set, reported Sergeant Mike Foster, as his team prepared to enter the main council chamber. These barriers won't stop shaped charges. The explosion shattered the energy fields and sent debris flying through the crystal corridors, where galactic law had been written for a millennium. Human soldiers poured through the breach, their weapons ready for combat in the heart of galactic civilization. The most shocking attack occurred on the peaceful world of Ultima, where the Zephyrian Alliance maintained their cultural centers and universities. Major Patricia Davis led her team in a raid designed not to cause casualties, but to deliver a message that would terrify logical alien minds. Her soldiers left behind holographic recordings, showing human military capabilities, historical battle footage, and most importantly, interviews with human soldiers explaining their willingness to die for victory. The aliens who found these recordings later would struggle to understand a species that viewed death in battle as preferable to defeat. Back on Earth, the Quantum Communication Network carried reports of the raids to every corner of the galaxy. Alien civilizations that had never heard of humans suddenly learned that a primitive species from the Outer Rim had successfully attacked the Council's most secure worlds. The psychological impact was devastating. For the first time in galactic history, advanced civilizations realized they were vulnerable to attack by species they considered inferior. The Council's guarantee of security had been shattered by humans willing to take suicidal risks for strategic objectives. Supreme Admiral Vic Valar received the reports while his Grand Fleet was still days away from Earth. His tactical advisors struggled to process the implications of simultaneous human attacks across dozens of star systems. How did they coordinate strikes across such distances? Demanded General Kixmuth of the Hegemony Forces. Our intelligence indicated they possessed no faster-than-light communication technology. They stole it from us, the Admiral replied, grimly, just like they stole our ships, our weapons, and our tactical data. These humans learn faster than any species we've encountered. The Council worlds were now experiencing something they hadn't felt in 1,000 years: fear. Their citizens demanded protection from the human raiders, but their military forces were designed for conquest, not defense. The humans had exposed a fundamental weakness in galactic civilization. They had grown, too, comfortable with their own superiority. As the Grand Fleet approached Earth's solar system, they carried with them the knowledge that victory would be more costly than anyone had anticipated. The humans had proven they could strike anywhere in the galaxy, and they had demonstrated a willingness to die for objectives that logical minds considered worthless. The final battle would determine not just Earth's fate, but the future balance of power among the stars. And somewhere in the captured quantum networks, human voices continued broadcasting their defiant message to anyone willing to listen. Earth would never surrender, and the galaxy would never be the same. Supreme Admiral Vic Valar's Grand Fleet arrived at Earth's solar system to find humanity waiting for them. But this was not the desperate last stand he had expected. Instead of huddling behind their planet's defenses, the humans had turned the entire solar system into a weapon. Dr. Kevin Scott's greatest achievement floated in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Millions of space rocks, each one equipped with quantum guidance systems and nuclear propulsion, hung in perfect formation, like a deadly constellation. The humans had weaponized every piece of debris larger than a car, creating the most extensive minefield in galactic history. "Sir, our sensors are detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system," reported the fleet's tactical officer. "The humans have deployed some kind of weapon network across multiple planetary orbits." Admiral Vic Valar studied the readings with growing unease. His fleet of 200 warships represented the combined might of 3 galactic empires, but the humans had somehow turned their entire star system into a fortress. Every planet, moon, and asteroid seemed to be armed and ready for battle. "They're using our own quantum technology against us," he realized. "They've networked their primitive weapons into a unified defense grid." How did they master such complex systems in only 60 days? The answer came from Commander Nick Peterson, leading humanity's final squadron of modified fighters. His voice crackled across all communication frequencies as he addressed the alien fleet directly. "Admiral Vec Valar, this is Earth Defense Command. We know you're listening, so here's how this is going to work. You have one chance to turn around and leave our system peacefully. If you refuse, we'll show you why humans have never lost a war on our home ground." Peterson's fighter squadron emerged from behind Earth's moon, their alien-enhanced engines glowing like blue stars. But these weren't the desperate pilots who had fought the first battle. These were veterans now, experienced in alien technology and confident in their ability to outfight any enemy. The Admiral's response was swift and decisive. "All ships open fire. Destroy everything human in this system." The Grand Fleet unleashed the greatest bombardment in galactic history. Energy beams that could crack moons cut through space toward Earth, while missile salvos large enough to destroy entire cities streaked toward the human homeworld. It was firepower sufficient to sterilize a dozen planets. But the humans were ready. Dr. Amanda Blake's quantum communication network activated every weapon in the solar system simultaneously. Asteroids accelerated to incredible velocities, becoming kinetic missiles that struck the alien fleet with the force of nuclear explosions. The barrier between Mars and Jupiter erupted into a storm of metal and fire as millions of space rocks launched themselves at the invading ships. "Impossible!" Admiral Vec Valar shouted as his flagship's shields flared under the impact of dozens of high-velocity asteroids. "How are they coordinating this many projectiles?" Captain Jake Morrison answered from the bridge of his captured alien dreadnought, now fully converted into humanity's most dangerous weapon. His ship had been stripped of all defensive systems and loaded with enough nuclear warheads to destroy a moon. "It's called logistics, Admiral. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We know how to move supplies, coordinate attacks, and make every bullet count. Your people forgot how to fight because you never had to." Morrison's ship accelerated toward the center of the alien fleet, its engines pushing it to velocities that should have torn the vessel apart. Behind him, two more captured alien ships followed the same suicidal course, their human crews singing battle songs as they prepared for their final charge. The alien fleet tried to adapt to human tactics, but their formations were designed for conventional warfare against logical opponents. They had no protocols for dealing with enemies who turned their own ships into guided missiles, or who coordinated attacks across an entire star system using stolen technology. Commander Sarah Lewis led the ground assault on the alien ships that managed to reach Earth's atmosphere. Her Marines used captured alien teleportation technology to board enemy vessels while they were still in orbit, turning the invasion ships into battlegrounds where human close combat skills gave them a decisive advantage. "X7 secured," she reported as her team cleared another alien ship. "These guys are hopeless in hand-to-hand combat. Their weapons are designed for long-range engagements. Up close, they can't handle human aggression." But the turning point came when Dr. Kevin Scott activated his final surprise. Hidden in the quantum communication network that the humans had hijacked from the original alien probe was a virus designed specifically for galactic technology. When Scott triggered it, every alien ship in the system suddenly lost communication with its command structure. The effect was devastating. Alien vessels that had operated as a coordinated fleet for millions of years were suddenly isolated, unable to share targeting data or tactical information. Their sophisticated battle computers, programmed to work as part of a networked system, became confused and ineffective when forced to operate independently. Admiral Vec Valar watched in horror as his massive fleet began falling apart. Ships collided with each other as their navigation systems failed. Weapons fired at empty space because their targeting computers couldn't process data without network support. The technological advantage that had made galactic conquest possible became a fatal weakness when humans turned it against them. "Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Council homeworld," his communications officer reported. "All 12 member species are requesting immediate ceasefire negotiations." The Admiral understood why. Reports were flooding in from across the galaxy as human raid teams continued their attacks on Council worlds. The raids weren't attempting conquest. They were demonstrating that nowhere in galactic space was safe from human retaliation. Civilizations that had known only peace for millennia were experiencing the terror of war for the first time, but the humans weren't finished. President Helen Walsh's voice echoed across the battlefield as she broadcast humanity's terms directly to the surviving alien fleet. "Admiral, your council sent us an ultimatum 60 days ago. Now we're sending one back. Humanity demands full membership in the Galactic Council with equal voting rights. We demand recognition as a sovereign species with territorial rights to our entire star system. And we demand that the Council's expansion policies be reviewed to ensure that no other species faces the choice between slavery and extinction." She paused, letting her words sink in as the battle continued to rage around the Admiral's damaged fleet. "In return, we'll call off our raids on your homeworlds and help you develop new defensive strategies to protect your citizens. Because whether you like it or not, the galaxy just got a lot more dangerous. Other species are watching this battle, and some of them are probably wondering if they need to be as afraid of the Council as they used to be." Admiral Thekvalar looked around his bridge at the damage reports flooding in from his fleet. 80% of his ships were destroyed or disabled. The humans had turned what should have been an easy conquest into the worst military disaster in galactic history. But more importantly, they had shattered the myth of Council invincibility. Other species throughout the galaxy were receiving reports of human victories, learning that the supposedly unstoppable galactic empire could be beaten by a single primitive world willing to fight against impossible odds. "Open a channel to the human president," he ordered. "I have authority to negotiate preliminary ceasefire terms." The formal peace negotiations took place on neutral ground, a space station maintained by one of the few species that had never joined the Galactic Council. Ambassador Zethkar, who had delivered the original ultimatum to Earth, found himself sitting across a table from Dr. Amanda Blake, now humanity's first galactic ambassador. This outcome was not anticipated, Zethkar admitted as they signed the treaty documents. "Our analysts believed that primitive species would always choose survival over dignity." "That's your problem right there," Blake replied. "You assumed we were primitive. We're not primitive. We're young. There's a difference. Young species take risks that old ones consider impossible. Young species fight for things that experienced ones consider worthless." The treaty that emerged from those negotiations changed the balance of power throughout the galaxy. Humanity received full Council membership and territorial sovereignty over their star system. More importantly, they gained the right to review and veto any Council decisions regarding the treatment of developing species. But the real change went deeper than formal politics. The galaxy had learned that technological superiority was not enough to guarantee victory against opponents willing to die for their beliefs. Other young species began to reconsider their relationships with the Council, and some began developing their own defensive capabilities. Dr. Blake's first speech to the Galactic Council became legendary throughout known space. Standing in the great crystal chamber where 12 species had once dictated terms to the galaxy, she delivered humanity's new diplomatic doctrine. "Earth doesn't seek to conquer the galaxy," she announced to the assembled alien representatives. "We're here to make sure nobody else does either. The age of easy conquest is over. From now on, any species that